Force has penetrated the shield and landed on Endor.
This is where the fun begins.
A long time ago, in a galaxy far, far away.
This is Rebel Force Radio.
Your source for the Force.
Star Wars news and commentary.
With Jason Swank and Jimmy Mack.
I've seen Star Wars 500 times.
Star Wars #1!
This station is now the ultimate power in the universe. I suggest we use it.
Now it's time for Rebel Force Radio.
We would be honored if you would join us.
I think Billy D. Williams found out that Kerry Russell was going to be in Episode 9, and that's why he signed up.
Hello, what have we here?
I think Kerry Russell seems like Billy D's type. This is great news. We have confirmation. Congratulations to our friends at Bantha Tracks. They broke the story a few weeks ago, but it's now being verified by Hollywood Reporter. By the way, what does Lucasfilm ever confirm anything anymore? I just see Hollywood Reporter and Variety and all of this. I never see anything coming out of Lucasfilm. I don't know why that is, but I guess they've got their friends in the press breaking these stories for us, or for them. And this is a big one. Billy D. Williams confirmed, according to Hollywood Reporter, that he'll be in Episode 9, reprising his role as Lando. And everybody is placing their bets on just how Lando will die in Episode 9.
Wow.
Well, I said that, legacy characters now in these Star Wars films, they're sort of like the Star Wars equivalent of the red shirts in Star Trek. Like, you see a legacy character, all of a sudden something bad's going to happen. But anyway, nothing bad is going to happen right now while you're listening to Rebel Force Radio. We're so excited to be back with you. We took a week off. I took a little trip to the lake to kind of chill out. And, it was great. It was great. Took the family to the lake, and we fished, and we swam, and we did all kinds of fun stuff. But we are back this week's show for Friday. What month is it? July. Jeez, it's hard to believe. It's July 13th, 2018. We've got so much to talk about. We've got, as we promised before, we've got highlights coming up from Comic-Con, the Star Wars panel, hosted by Kevin Lyle and special guests Matt Wood, of course you know him as General Grievous, and Mark Dodson, the actor who portrayed Salacious B. Crumb in Return of the Jedi. They'll be answering Rebel Force Radio listener questions. Also, this is incredible. We're going to go into the cantina with an actual professional football player, right? I'm not talking about that other sport that's on right now where they're running around kicking the ball. I'm talking about the NFL. We've got a honest-to-goodness NFL player. Tom Savage is going to be joining us in the cantina. He plays for the New Orleans Saints. Make sure that you stick around for that and hear what it's like to be a Star Wars fan in the NFL. Plus, some new interview highlights from Ron Howard, where he's talking a little bit more about that visit to the solo set by the maker himself, George Lucas. We've just got a jam-packed show for you. And, of course, I can't do it alone. I've got joining me, as always, my good friend and yours from Chicago, Jimmy Mack.
Hey, Jason. Hey, Star Wars fans. Yeah, a lot of energy going on with the show this week. I'm really excited to get back in the old cockpit here and fly into the Star Wars universe and talk about all cool things Star Wars. So much good stuff. I'm so excited we're actually going to talk to an NFL player who is a huge Star Wars fan. So it's always exciting to make contact with those in professional sports who are as into Star Wars as we are. And I think Tom Savage from the New Orleans Saints will not disappoint. Also, I'm so excited about the Lando news. So we couldn't do a show without our brother in the Force, Billy Mack.
Hey.
So he's in studio with us.
Fantastic.
And I'm hoping maybe we'll hear from a familiar voice.
Well, you might. You got to give me a little room.
Okay, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Got to allow me a little warm up.
Definitely, the Lando warm-up is most important. But let's put that on the back burner for now.
Back burner.
Okay?
Yeah.
Bill, how many times have you seen Solo?
twice.
Only twice.
Yeah.
Now, is that common for you as a Star Wars fan? When a Star Wars film is released, you only see it twice?
Let me think. I think I saw Rogue One twice.
Oh, so it's not that uncommon. In the new
Last
era.
Jedi, I think I saw 4 times.
Mm-hmm.
Solo twice.
So not so uncommon.
Not
this
so
is a new
uncommon.
era.
Not so uncommon.
We're not going to be going to the theater a dozen plus times in its initial run. I mean, some of us
Not
will.
when it costs $20 to go see a movie.
That is true.
Yeah,
it is,
no
it is
kidding.
much more of a financial commitment. And also, I think with the quick turnaround to home video, and a lot of us have home theaters that rival even movie theaters. I mean, for crying out loud, the technology at home is so amazing now. So I think we bank on the fact, hey, well, we'll get the Blu-ray release in just a few months, so we don't have to see it a million times. The pressure is off a little bit, I think, when it comes to that repeat viewing thing.
Yeah.
I saw Solo 3 times. Twice on opening weekend. And then, of course, I had to go to the $5 theater here in the neighborhood because it was a walk away. And so I had that in my back pocket for a number of weeks. I was, not a number of weeks, a number of days at least, where I was saying, at any given moment, I can bolt from here and see Solo within 5 minutes of me walking out my front door. And so I kind of cherished that for a little while and just always had, like I said, in my back pocket. Like if anyone gets on my nerves, I'm out of here to go see Solo. That's kind of a nice little thing to have.
That's a good justification. You know what I think part of it was for me, too, though, is that I was so the last time I was on with you guys was when we were in Ohio. And that was such, I was so fulfilled by that experience.
Oh, yeah, Solo in Ohio, that was a great time.
Yeah, I didn't really, I did go and see it once by myself in a more quieter type of mood and everything, and not having to engage in any RFR activity, just kind of on my own, solitary. And that was good enough. I was satisfied after that. Yeah, I was pretty fulfilled, by our visit to Ohio, and had so much fun, and we thoroughly
our late night podcast there on the street.
That was a blast. You can't top that
with our man that
Darth
came by
Vader.
and was looking for some booze, man.
Yeah, well, we helped him out.
Yeah.
Well,
he helped us out too.
Well,
by providing a little comic relief.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Oh, okay. Oh, that part. Yeah.
What were you thinking?
Well, there was some shady stuff going on in the alley down the street, though. But I had nothing to do with it. So they say. But you know who has seen Solo a number of times and wants to talk to us about it is New Orleans Saints quarterback Tom Savage. I'm so thrilled to talk to an NFL player who's a huge Star Wars fan. Just for a little background about Tom Savage, he's a 5-year veteran of the National Football League. Last season, he played with the Houston Texans, and now he's signed on with the New Orleans Saints. And he will be joining them in training camp this season and working with the master himself, Drew Brees, a sure Hall of Famer, will be working directly with Tom, and that's amazing. I mean, it's great to hear from a guy who he just reached out to us out of the blue and said he was a huge Star Wars fan and he really enjoyed listening to Rebel Force Radio. We had a lot of back and forth for a while, and then finally I was just like, hey, let's talk about your fandom on the show. So I'm so excited, finally, to talk to him in person. New Orleans Saints quarterback Tom Savage.
Star Wars Cantina.
Where are you going, Master? For a drink.
Sorry about the mess.
You will never find a more wretched hive of scum and villainy. We must be cautious.
Let's give it up for Tom Savage, ladies and gentlemen.
Oh, thanks for having me, guys. I appreciate it.
Tom, you are the first NFL player we've had on the show.
That's good. Hopefully I'm not the last.
No, are there a lot of maybe your fellow teammates or other guys around the league who are known Star Wars fans outside yourself?
Yeah, I mean, there are. I don't know. Obviously, I was in the Houston locker room a little bit, and I kind of got made fun of because when The Force Awakens came out, I came in with Kylo's lightsaber about 6 o'clock in the morning, and I was just swiping everyone down with it, and everyone was like, "Oh, you're a nerd." And I was like, "I love it." I was so excited. And so
now they weren't stuffing you in the lockers, were they, Tom? You're a big guy, so I don't think you would fit, but that's what they did back in my day. I don't know.
No, and they weren't touching anyone with a lightsaber either. So I just don't know if people really wanted to see a lightsaber at 6 o'clock in the morning before football practice. But
where'd you get the saber?
I just ordered it online. It's one of those Black Series ones, and my all-time goal is I just want to get all of them. I want to order all of them and just put them in my basement one day and have the whole wall lit up with them, and that's going to be that's the goal. I just still trying to convince my wife.
All right, well, you got plenty of time to do that.
I like your bucket list where it's win the Super Bowl, lightsabers in the basement. Okay,
yeah,
gotta check them off.
We got to convince the wife first, and then we put the lightsabers in. But Tom, I think that you could provide a unique perspective here because. Jimmy Mack and I, we're old guys, and Bill as well, and we grew up with the original Star Wars trilogy. Right. You, being a younger guy, I think you were born in 1990, which puts you at about 9 years old, like perfect age for when the Phantom Menace came out. Did you go see Phantom Menace in the theater when it came out? And
oh yeah, I remember it like it was yesterday. I know a lot of the Star Wars fans out there, there's a few out there who obviously don't like the prequels as much.
Oh, no. What is this? I haven't heard this. This maybe in the NFL it's that way, but no. Go on, Tom.
I mean, I grew up and I loved them. I love the prequels. I don't know. I just remember going to the movie theaters and seeing it, and I saw it a bunch of times. And then I had the game on Nintendo 64 with the pod racing, and I mean that's kind of how I grew up with. And then eventually, as I got older and older, I watched the originals, and obviously they're my favorite. The originals are my favorite. That's
really
yeah.
Okay,
I mean,
so
you just can't beat him.
Yeah, that is surprising a little bit to me, being that. Because when you see something like that at a young age, it tends to stick with you. For me, Return of the Jedi is the one that I most vividly remember seeing in the theater. Yeah. Rumor has it I was technically in a theater when Empire Strikes Back was playing, but I was 4 years old, so I wouldn't have known. But so that first impression, is the one that kind of sticks with you. But so you see the prequels first, and then you go back to experience the originals.
Yeah, I mean, from what I remember, I was 9 years old obviously when the Phantom Menace came out. So, but I just remember, even at a younger age, I remember my Aunt Sandy, who now passed. She used to take me to Toys R Us every week and let me go buy a toy. And I always used to buy little X-wings, TIE fighters, all that stuff. And that was actually before I even saw the Phantom Menace. So I knew what Star Wars was. And I just loved the idea of ships back then and spaceships and all that stuff. And then when I saw the Phantom Menace, I was like, I love it. I'm hooked. And
you were in
ever since there. Yeah.
Tom,
you were in.
Yeah, you have a fond memory of going with your aunt to the Toys R Us. Do you have any sort of feelings of sadness knowing that Toys R Us has closed its doors for good now?
Yeah, I mean, it is sad. You kind of grew up going to those stores. I used to go there and go buy my N64 games and stuff, and it's kind of sad because we had a daughter last year who's now a year and a half, and it kind of hits me. I'm like, I can't take her. I was really looking forward to just taking her to the toy store, letting her run around. I'd pick out a couple toys, whatever you want, and now it's like you have to put a shopping list together on Amazon and you'll get it in 2 days.
which is great, but there is something about the experience that is now lacking.
Exactly. Trust me, I use Amazon more than anybody. I love it, but it's the same.
As a young kid, you said you would get action figures. Is that something that actually spilled into your teenage years and young adulthood, or did you close the door?
Yeah.
It did?
No, it did. And I still collect. I got all the little I'm a handyman, so I kind of do, like, I build furniture for a living, or not a living, obviously on the side, but I got those little aluminum figures that I've been doing, the really, really tiny ones with all the different...
Oh, wow. A lot of patience to do those, right?
Yeah, a lot. And it's hard because you got to do it at 9 o'clock when your daughter goes to bed, obviously, because she just wants to grab it and crush it. But, yeah, I've just been... Yeah. You know what the problem is? It's like in the NFL, you're moving all the time. I've lived in 5 houses in the last 4 years. So you're always moving, and everything's always in storage. So it's kind of tough to keep collecting and stuff, but eventually when I settle down into a home, I'll have all that stuff pulled out, and I'm excited about it.
Yeah.
Now your little girl, she's 1.5 years. Have you already figured out, the age that she'll be when you decide to sit her down and show her these movies?
Well, she's already seen a bunch.
She's okay. Yes. All right, so she already has.
Yeah, not by her choice. Obviously, her attention span isn't up to par yet, but
it'll get soon. Let me give you a little advice. Lego Star Wars, okay? Lego Star Wars is the best gateway for your kids. It really does, because they start to familiarize with the characters, and then they make that leap into the live action films, and it worked for me.
Yeah, but I'll definitely do that.
So what's your perspective as someone who grew up, even though you kind of have this affinity and this preference for the original trilogy, for a guy who grew up experiencing the prequel trilogy, as you were, as a kid, now you're an adult and you're seeing this new trilogy unfold. How do you feel about, the direction that's going?
I mean, I might get scolded. I loved them. I love all of them. I love The Force Awakens. I must have seen Force Awakens 20 times. I mean, my wife is like, "You're insane." 'Cause I just keep watching it. And now The Last Jedi came out, and I know it has some backsplash here and there with certain fans and stuff, but if I'm just being honest, I love them. Mm-hmm. I really do. I really enjoy them. I think The Last Jedi was just like, it was a beautiful movie to watch in terms of just visuals and all that stuff. And I'm excited about the direction it's headed, and I just cannot wait until 9 comes out so we can see it and see where this is going.
How about Solo? I know you're a busy guy in the summer, but did you get a chance to go out and see Solo?
Oh yeah, I saw. It was funny. I came back here, so I just bought a house in St. Pete Beach, Florida, and I got in about 9 o'clock the opening night. We flew in. This was the weekend, and my wife was like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "I'm going in the car. I got to go see Solo opening night." She's like, "You are insane."
This is your first night in the new house?
Yep. She went there and
surrounded by boxes. Yeah. And you're just like, "See ya."
And I went by myself and just enjoy. I saw it twice so far. I mean, I really liked it. I thought it was awesome.
Tom, is there a plan to get your wife on board? She seems
she's
a little unfamiliar with this craziness we call fandom.
Yeah, it's hard. I mean, I have like 4 lightsabers, and I'm like, "Oh, I want to get that one next." And she's like, "You have 4 lightsabers. What more do you need?" And I'm like, "I want them all." So it's hard, but we'll get there.
It's good to have goals.
Yeah.
Little at a time.
Yeah, my wife will say that to my son, because he'll say, "Oh, I want that action figure," and she'll be like, "It's Luke Skywalker. You already have a Luke Skywalker action figure." And I'm like, "Yeah, but he doesn't have the one in the outfit from Return of the Jedi with the pauldron on the shirt down, exposing the white triangle. He doesn't have that one."
Yeah, if you don't get it, you don't get it. You know.
Yeah, she looks at me like I'm nuts. But
we're all in the same boat, Tom. Essentially.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, and I like it that way. I would, I think it would be great to be able to share my passion for Star Wars with my wife, who would like equally share back that same passion. But then when I think about it, it's like, I kind of like just being the Star Wars guy in the house,
Oh, for sure. Absolutely. I get my own little moments here and there. It's funny. I'll turn on like Rogue One or something, and I see her. I'm like, "Just sit down and watch this with us." And she kind of like gets up and starts fondling elsewhere and does her own little thing. And I'm like, "Okay, I lost her. It's over."
Yeah. We always try.
It takes about like 20 minutes, And then she starts asking questions, and I'm like, "Okay, forget it."
Well, I mean, now she might have a thing. Like, what's her thing? Does she have a sort of a Star Wars kind of obsession?
Let's think. I mean, she likes all those reality shows on E! And I don't know the names. Yeah, or Bravo. That stuff.
Yeah,
and that's kind of the same thing I do. She puts it on, and
The Real Housewives and all that stuff.
All that stuff.
Okay, all right.
It's just so hard to watch. It really is. But you know what? Happy wife, happy life. You know.
Yeah.
Do what you got to do.
Hallelujah.
That's right. Well, as a professional athlete, as a guy that obviously has to train and condition and all that stuff, are there any particular moments in Star Wars that you kind of reflect on or think about to kind of give you that little extra bit of motivation to get up, train, work out, whatever you have to do?
Yeah, I mean all the time. I mean, I like one of my favorite characters in the movies is Yoda. Obviously, I love Yoda. I think just all of his inspirational quotes and stuff, and he's just a good character. Kind of build yourself upon and listen to a lot of his little tidbits in here, and it kind of puts it all into perspective. You go out there and you just keep working. It's not an easy job. I mean, I know it looks good and great all the time, but it's hard work. It's hard on the family. It's hard on your body. You got to take some hits here and there, but yeah, I mean, I love what I do, and I'm excited that I get to come home and watch Star Wars and do all this stuff too.
Well, Tom, I'll tell you, I live in Canton, Ohio, and I'm just a stone's throw from the Football Hall of Fame, and we're the city is trying to do a lot for former players and developing a whole community and housing and all kinds of stuff. So I grew up certainly in a town that really appreciates the work that you guys put in, even at going back to a time when people didn't necessarily know some of the sacrifices that players were making, and all of that. So appreciate it very much, of course. And, when it's creating a lot of entertainment for people, but they don't, sometimes you take for granted that they're, real human beings.
For sure.
Kind of like podcasters, you forget that they're real people but behind the microphone.
Hey, Tom, besides podcasting, how do you stay connected to the films? Besides listening to the podcast or watching the movies, do you do any like outside reading, or do you follow it online? How do you stay in touch?
I follow it online. It's sad. I've for the past 2 years now, I've been kind of going on Twitter, and that stuff. But honestly, Twitter is just such a nasty place right now, and it's just and that's where I got most of my information. I would always just type in like Star Wars on the search bar or Last Jedi or whatever it is, Episode 9, and you're just sitting there looking for news and stuff. But right now, it's such a nasty spot. So I honestly, if I'm just being honest, I listen to you guys once a week, and that's how I get all my information. I know you guys are going to provide.
Cool. No pressure there, Jim. No pressure. We got to keep Tom in the loop. We got all kinds of stories. One of the big ones that we'll cover a little bit later is the news that Billy D. Williams is going to reprise his role as Lando in episode.
That.
What do you think about Lando coming back?
That's awesome. I mean, that's awesome. I thought he was going to come back in Last Jedi. I really did, but I'm excited. It's going to be.
He didn't hear that distress call that Leia sent out apparently, but maybe he'll hear it now. Maybe he'll hear it now.
And, he's hearing it from everyone.
I thought maybe he would be the code breaker, but I guess not.
Yeah, or at least sitting there looking suave in that casino.
Yeah.
They could have easily run into him there. There was ample opportunity to include Lando Calrissian in The Last Jedi, I believe. But hey, if the reports turn out to be true, Billy D. Williams is going to be coming back. And as much as I like Donald Glover, I can't help but refer to Billy D. Williams as real Lando. So very happy to see the originator coming back. And speaking of Solo, let's get into the weeds a little bit with you. What ran through your head when Darth Maul was revealed to be the leader behind Crimson Sun or Crimson Dawn, right? It's Crimson Dawn, right?
It's Dawn, yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah. I mean, I like it. I haven't really caught up on the cartoons, but immediately, or the animated series, but immediately after that was done, I was like, okay, I have to go and I have to watch all these episodes of how Darth Maul's still alive and all that. But I'm excited to see, obviously, what they're going to do with him in the future. Hopefully, I don't know if it's going to jump into a Obi-Wan movie, if he's going to be there, or if they're going to do a Solo 2 or whatever they do. But I mean, obviously as a kid growing up with Darth Maul, I thought he was one of the great villains of my time growing up, with the double lightsaber and all that stuff. So I'm excited.
As a 9-year-old, did you walk out of The Phantom Menace saying, boy, I wish there was more Darth Maul in that movie?
Yeah, I really did, because I was kind of upset that he died so early, because he was just such a dominant character in that movie, and he didn't have much, obviously, verbal communication in that movie, so I just wanted a little bit more, and I mean, I'm happy that they got him, but I was kind of bummed that he died.
So were you able to follow along? You said you wanted to go back and look at those episodes of the Clone Wars. But were you aware of that prior to seeing Solo?
Sure, yeah.
Okay.
I was. And yeah, it didn't take me by surprise. I mean, obviously, I shouldn't say that. It took me by surprise that he was in the movie, but I wasn't like, how is he alive? One of those type deals. It was just, I don't know who said, I don't know if it was Jason or Jimmy, but it was kind of like, that whole scene was like, I don't know if you guys watch the Marvel movies and stuff, but that post-credit scene.
Totally. Mm-hmm.
It just felt like that, kind of like you were sitting there and like, oh, what's going on here? And then it popped up and I don't know, kind of got you hooked.
Absolutely. Yeah. Billy Mack was sitting next to me on opening night, and he still loves to laugh about my freak-out session when Darth Maul hit the screen. How did that go again, Bill? What did I say?
It's like, wait, what? Maul? 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 Are you kidding me? Bill, do you know what's going on? I don't even know what's happening right now.
Yeah.
Darth Maul, why? Maul?
And so, I'm nobody around me is actually hearing the dialogue coming off the movie because I was just like,
I heard the name Maul used in about 10 different inflections there. It was
That's funny.
Were there a lot of people in the theater when you went to see it on opening night, Tom?
Yeah. I mean, it was packed, and the second time I saw it was packed as well. And I seen a bunch of reports and stuff that it didn't do as projected or in the box office, and I don't know why. I really don't. I thought the movie was phenomenal.
Yeah, I just was wondering. You went by yourself, so
don't say that too loud.
You had to squeeze. Hey, I don't think there's
no
anything
shame in that.
I've been going to movies by myself forever.
Me too. Me too.
I actually love it. I think it's pretty therapeutic. You go away and just sit there. You don't have to answer questions during the movie. You just enjoy it.
Exactly. So was there anything else in Solo that jumped out at you as being a favorite moment or a surprise?
I mean, obviously going in, I listened to your guys' podcast and stuff. I was with you guys, super curious about who Enfys Nest was and what was going to kind of unfold there. I just really, really enjoyed the movie. I thought it was a really fun movie. And when I left there, I was pumped. And obviously, it's as a Star Wars fan, you're kind of sad to see that it didn't do as well money-wise, because that's kind of always what runs the ship. But I really enjoyed it, and I was kind of bummed to see that it didn't tear it up like I thought it would.
Yeah, because it did have a great opening day, but then it sort of fell off over the weekend, unfortunately.
Yeah.
There's a bunch of reasons why. But the bottom line is it's a quality film and a lot of fun. And it is still out in a lot of theaters, so if people haven't seen it, I strongly suggest you do. Although I don't think too many people listen to a Star Wars podcast without going to see the movie first. So I think I'm just talking into a void right now. I think everyone listening to the show has seen it. But, hey, go see it again. It's worth it. And so do you have any predictions for episode 9?
I don't have any predictions. I'm just really curious to see what's going to happen between the relationship between Rey and Kylo, and kind of what Rian Johnson did there with building them up. I kind of got that little feeling that, like, I'm not going to say that they were like some romance was going to happen.
Are you shipping them, Tom? Are you a Reylo supporter out there?
Sitting there, and I was like, this could be cool. I would like this, but I'm super curious of what's going to happen there, and that whole dynamic.
Do you think we'll see Luke?
It's going to be fun.
Yeah. Do you think Luke Skywalker?
Sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I think absolutely. You can't.
Beard or no beard, Tom? What do you say? Beard or no beard? Beard or no beard with Luke?
It's got to be a beard, right?
Yeah, you would think. But
like when he had his little foreshadow against Kylo, I mean, his beard was a little tame. So if you still consider that, I think it'll be that.
Yeah, he had that. He had the he kind of lost the the what do you call it, like Paul Bunyan or whatever.
Yeah, he was more like
he ran a couple strokes of Just for Men in there and won the battle.
Kind of.
Well,
Kenny Loggins.
Every time you saw an interview with Kenny
Loggins, Luke.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, anytime you saw an interview with Mark Hamill, he was always talking about, he sounded like Hulk Hogan about how he was hanging and banging, and working out the whole time. And they wanted him to lose all this weight. And then you see him at the end of Last Jedi, and you're like, I don't know, man. That personal trainer, I think, owes you a refund, dude. Like, you're not looking so svelte.
Oh, I don't know.
And then, of course, we find out. Well, no. I'm talking about when he was, at the end of Force Awakens. Maybe I said Last Jedi. At the end of Force Awakens and throughout the Last Jedi, he looked a little, he looked a little pudgy. And then at the end, as Tom's saying, when he's having that, the projection, and he's projecting himself as his younger self, that's when we go, oh, that's why he had to work out, because he looked phenomenal.
Yeah,
phenomenal.
The ripped abs really pushed it over the top. But Mark looks in better shape than he has in decades. He looks fantastic. I just saw a picture of him today, and he actually reminded me of a much younger Mark Hamill. So that's good to see. So I hope we get Luke Skywalker in Episode 9. I think we will, though. Any other predictions for the future of Star Wars, Tom, from your perspective as an NFL quarterback?
No. I mean, I hope. I don't know if you guys can tell me or not. The whole that the side movies are being put on hold. I hope that's not true. I would really like to see an Obi-Wan movie. I think that'd be awesome.
Yeah.
And I enjoyed them all. I mean, I really do. So I think that would be fun. I don't really have any other projections. I just think
is there one character that you would love to see get a standalone film?
I think it's just Obi-Wan. I mean, that's the one. Right? That's the one I'm really like. Yeah. I just think there's so much to that character that can be still portrayed, and I would really like that.
Yeah, I mean, Tom, just saying it's put on hold. I don't think that means things are being trashed. I just think it means post Episode 9. I think it would be appropriate if all resources were dumped into Episode 9, because it's such an important movie, probably the most important, especially if you think it's going to wrap up the Skywalker saga, and there's just a lot riding on that film. So I think it's wise then just to sort of take a step back, get that movie out, and then fire up things like the Obi-Wan movie on all cylinders. So I hope it happens. Fingers crossed.
Yeah, me too.
All right. Well, Tom, before we let you go, we'd like to revisit something we've been doing on the podcast for a long time. This goes back, this goes back a long time. There used to be a show on TV. I don't know if it's still on. It used to be on Bravo. Perhaps your wife sees it in between episodes of Real Housewives of, whatever county or whatever those shows are.
I'm sure she doesn't miss it.
But it was called Inside the Actor Studio, and they always did this wonderful little questionnaire at the end, and we've sort of adapted it to fit a Star Wars theme. So we'd love to give you what we call our Yoda questionnaire before we let you go. So Are you ready for it? Okay, this really tests your mettle as a Star Wars fan, all right?
Oh, then that's not going to be good.
Oh, no, not trivia. It's not gotcha stuff, All right, so let's start out. Who is your favorite Star Wars character?
Vader.
Wow.
Oh, all right.
I was expecting an Obi-Wan or Yoda, but go on the dark side.
Yeah, I just think if you think about villain, he's the greatest villain of all time, and I mean, for an actor to do that without portraying his face or without showing his face, obviously until the very end, I think it's just I think he's the best character.
Did you see the original trilogy before seeing The Phantom Menace?
No, I did not.
Really? So you were introduced to the character of Anakin Skywalker before he shifted to evil?
Yeah. I mean, but the actual visual of Vader, I understood. I seen him. I knew who he was before going in there, but I didn't At 9 years old, no, I didn't see it.
No, but I'm sure by the time of Revenge of the Sith, you schooled yourself on the original trilogy and understood where it was going. I can't recall if we've ever had anyone on the show who was shocked and surprised that Anakin Skywalker became Darth Vader from a perspective of watching the episodes in the numerical order. I've yet to meet someone who was like, wow, when Anakin went dark, I couldn't believe it. Oh, my God. I've yet to meet a person.
Yeah, you're kind of just waiting.
Yeah, I think that, the Darth Vader character, is just such an iconic part of popular culture that you just can't escape it. And so you kind of, it's almost like you just grow up knowing, who he is or what he is. Okay, so we got Darth Vader, favorite character. Who is your least favorite character?
Least favorite character? Gosh. I don't want to jump on this wagon, but I didn't really like Jar Jar Binks.
I already wrote down Jar Jar Binks before he said it. I knew he was going to say it.
I want to like him. I just thought he was kind of
even at 9 years old.
As a child, did not like him.
Yeah.
Really? All right. That's okay. That's okay. We accept all kinds here, Tom. On the show.
It's like he's something unique for not liking Jar Jar Binks.
Yeah, right. Yeah, right. We've never heard that before. All right, Tom. What moment in Star Wars, and this now encompasses all the films, what moment in Star Wars always makes you smile?
Let's see here. I think when the whole dialogue between Luke and Leia in terms of her finding out and her kind of always saying I always knew, and I think that always was just like a good moment in those films for me. It's always kind of it made me smile. Put it that way.
You're a sentimental guy, Tom. I like this.
Yeah,
that's
because my wife is in the door next door. She's probably listening. So.
Oh. All right, now
what? Got a few points there.
Yeah,
nice.
You're one step closer to that action figure, that lightsaber basement.
I should have put you on speakerphone.
All right, what Star Wars moment makes you sad?
What makes me sad? I think Yoda dying.
Yep, I already wrote that down, Tom. I knew you were going to say it.
He is.
Am I just giving the most cliche answers here?
No,
not at all.
No, with the pause, the pause you took, and the sigh. There was almost a sigh there. I was like, he's going Yoda character. Here. I feel it.
All
right.
He's another great character.
So far, so good. Okay, Yoda dies. Sad moment.
What profession in the Star Wars universe? You have a lot to choose from. Well, what profession in the Star Wars universe would you most like to attempt if you lived in the Star Wars universe?
Profession. Does being a Jedi count as a profession?
Absolutely.
Then
the pension's amazing.
100%.
I wrote down pod racer, Tom.
This is kind of like the Newlywed Game.
Yeah. I wrote down. I thought you'd say pod
match, Jim.
But Jedi. Okay, Jedi. All right, I get that. You seem like a man of strong faith, so Jedi, yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's cool.
Now, what profession would you most like not to do in the Star Wars movie?
Probably being like a scrapper or something like that.
Oh, on Jakku.
Yeah.
Oh, that would suck. You'd have to stare at that old lady shining up the metal.
Yeah.
Every day.
Yeah.
Yeah, and just kind of rip people off and stuff. It just doesn't seem good.
Right. Oh, that's a great answer. Great answer.
That is a good answer. Scrapper. First time anyone's ever said scrapper. Seriously. All right, last question. Let's say that you're cast in a Star Wars movie. George Lucas is the director. What would you most like to hear him say to you when he says cut on your last scene?
Oh, man. I should have been prepared for this. I heard you ask the one guy this. Cut.
Yeah, he's like, cut. Right? That helps
yeah.
put you in that.
Yeah.
He said,
I don't know. I'm a simple guy. I think just good job, Tom.
Good job. Just a little pat on the back.
I mean, in the NFL, you don't get that much from your coaches. You don't get the whole good job. They get after you a little bit. So I think just like a little love there would be nice.
A little love from GL. You know what? George is a man of few words, so that's probably all you would get, actually.
Yeah, that's all I would need.
Nice job. All right. Well, Tom, this has been so much fun. Seriously, this has been great getting to know you. And it's an honor to have you in our audience. We love the fact that we've got so many listeners and those from such a variety of backgrounds. And so when the message came through that we had a NFL quarterback that was listening to Rebel Force Radio, we about fell over. So thank you so much for joining us, and we would love to have you back anytime you'd like to come back on and just talk Star Wars. We've got a new animated series that's coming. We've got obviously episode 9. So anytime you want to share your thoughts, you are always, always, always welcome.
Yeah, I appreciate that, guys. This has been awesome. I mean, I love your guys' show. I wake up every morning. I grab my cup of coffee. I put about 20 minutes of you guys on in my drive to work, and just kind of puts me in my little happy place.
Oh,
so
that's cool.
I appreciate what you guys do, and this is awesome.
Well, thank you so much, Tom, for taking the time out. Best of luck in training camp and the 2018 season. Drew Brees, he's an incredible quarterback, and it just must be amazing to be working alongside a guy like that.
Yeah, he's a phenomenal person. He's a great guy, and I'm lucky to be learning from him.
That's great to hear, Tom. Thank you so much for joining us. Also, you have the coolest name in the NFL. Let me just say, Tom Savage, forget about it. That's awesome.
You got to live up to it.
I'll bet. No relation to Randy Macho Man or anything like that?
Unfortunately, no. No Ben Savage, no nothing.
All right, Tom. Well, thank you so much, and please take care. May the Force be with you always.
All right, thank you, guys. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right,
thanks.
Bye.
Bye.
Rebel Force Radio.
Your source for the Force.
What a nice guy.
Oh, my God.
Super nice
Fantastic.
guy.
I have good news for you, my lord.
That's good news. Come closer, I have good news.
All right. Top story this week. Rebel Force Radio. What? Yeah, we made the top story this week. So Rebel Force Radio, yours truly, and Jimmy Mack have left Twitter. That is true. There were just a lot of circumstances that led to this decision. It wasn't anything that it wasn't a decision we made lightly, because we know that there are a lot of Rebel Force Radio, very loyal Rebel Force Radio listeners that are on Twitter and have done just excellent work at kind of looking after Rebel Force Radio, the things that people are saying about us and all of that. And we never take it for granted. We appreciate it so much. We appreciate your enthusiasm, your passion, and your love for Rebel Force Radio and Star Wars. But it just got to the point where it was like a square peg in a round hole. Truthfully, the whole format of Twitter, the whole nature of Twitter, and the kind of environment that it creates was never really a good fit for us. It wasn't a platform we used that often. And when we did use it, it always seemed like we were defending something, because there's always somebody that's going to be offended about something on Twitter. At least that's what it seemed like. And it just got to the point where it wasn't fun. It wasn't fun. And it just breeds the kind of nastiness that really is just the very lowest common denominator when it comes to social media. And Twitter is unique in that sense. It's unlike any of the other social media platforms where there's just so much venom, there's so much poison, there's so much nastiness that we just made the decision that, you know what, it's not a good fit for us, and we're out of here. We're not going to stick around and be punching bags for a bunch of people that want to take things out of context, manipulate, distort, and otherwise you just make up things about me, about Jimmy Mack, about Rebel Force Radio. It's just not worth it. It's not worth it. Jim, I know you have a lot of strong feelings about the subject. We don't want to belabor the point, but if there's anything you wanted to add about this exodus that we've had from Twitter.
Well, I always understood Twitter to be a platform to get the word out about our projects and occasional opinion. And I expected a two-way street there, and I ran into some roadblocks, some of which I predicted would happen and was ready to accept them. But the level of harassment, both personally and professionally, that has shown up at my and Jason's doorstep over opinions about Star Wars and the people that make Star Wars, which I think has always been pretty fair. We still have a great passion for Star Wars, but our place to display that passion is Rebel Force Radio, and it's not going to be the platform of Twitter anymore. It was just leading to nothing but bad news. We certainly have a lot of people out there who wish nothing but ill will against us in the show for the longevity, for the community we've built, and for the connections and success the show has had, quite honestly, over the years. I'm sorry people feel that way, but this is something that's been very personal to us and is very much an extension of nothing more than our passion for Star Wars. I think it's unfortunate that some people feel that they were caught in the crossfire of certain communications that were going on via social media, especially Twitter. And so I think it's best that we just put a stop to it altogether, focus on what we're best at doing, and that is displaying a passion for Star Wars, regardless if it's critical or if it's loving and glowing or if it's, again, sometimes it can be more critical. But I think it's important that we remain authentic to our feelings and true to ourselves as Star Wars fans. And we've been Star Wars fans long before social media, and we're going to continue to be Star Wars fans long after we've left Twitter. So that's it for Rebel Force Radio on Twitter. Sorry to see it have to happen this way, but it's for the best for everyone. And I think we are just going to, like I said, get back to doing what we do best, and that's talking about Star Wars here and communicating and going back and forth with all you guys who listen to this show for the last 12 years. We're going to keep doing it. Just because we've left Twitter, by no means does it mean that Rebel Force Radio, the podcast, which is all that matters to me, is going to stop. As a matter of fact, we have plans to keep going strong and keep building this community until it's there's no end game. It's just sharing a passion, and the more the merrier is how we've always felt here. So, sayonara, Twitter.
Tweet a little tweet on Twitter. Any little thing will do. Every single tweet's a winner. You can do it too.
Yes, tweet a little tweet on Twitter. Everyone will know what's new.
Tweet a little tweet. It's up to you. In 140 characters, I'll tell you what I eat.
On Twitter, I post random artsy pictures of my feet.
I'm staying up to date with friends while walking down the street.
Yeah, Twitter's pretty sweet.
You think that you're so cool, retweeting things like tools. You're all a bunch of fools.
Lando's not a system, he's a man. Lando Calrissian. Card player, gambler, scoundrel, you'd like it. Card player, gambler, scoundrel, you'd like it.
You truly belong here with us among the clouds. You truly belong here with us among the clouds. You truly belong here with us among the clouds. You truly belong here with us among the clouds. You truly belong here with us among the clouds.
Hello, what have we here?
All right, so Billy D. Williams, yes, it's confirmed. Well, I mean, at least as the Hollywood Reporter is concerned. Now, as I said at the top of the show, hats off to Fantha Tracks. Our pals over there in the UK, they broke this back on June 18th. They said that they called it their rumor exclusive that a huge name is part of Episode 9 and that they had it on good authority. Their source was able to verify that Billy D. Williams, yes, was coming back to play Lando in Episode 9, which, by the way, I don't know if we talked about this. Did you guys know that the working title for this was Black Diamond?
Yeah, I heard that.
That's interesting.
I did hear that.
You know, I heard another rumored name for that. That Black Diamond.
Like the Kiss song.
Yeah, right. Yes. Oh, that Kiss song is pretty
Oh, it's epic, man.
It's epic.
Come on, if you're a Kiss fan, that's in your top 10 for sure.
I heard something weird as a rumor. Somebody floated across my desk recently. They said the true working title of Episode 9 is Trixie.
Yeah,
Trixie.
Well, I think it is.
Yeah.
Have you heard that?
Well, I think it changed from Black Diamond
to Trixie,
yeah.
and the IX in Trixie is capitalized to signify the number 9. Have you guys heard this?
Yeah.
Oh, somebody.
Yeah,
I thought I had a hot scoop here. I'm like, my sources have revealed.
Yeah. A source familiar with the thinking of Lucasfilm. I had heard that. I heard that it was actually Black Diamond under Colin Trevorrow's watch, and then once JJ came on board, it changed over to Trixie.
Okay.
Hollywood Reporter is verifying this, and I thought, Jim, we talked about this earlier, that it might be appropriate if we can get him out of the box. I don't know if Puppet Lando is around.
Yeah, would Puppet Lando be able to read this Hollywood Reporter?
We got to get him out of the crate. Get Puppet Lando out of the crate.
Open it up.
Well, he might be able to, if he's not too sleepy. How you doing? Well, hold on a second.
Why would Lando be sleepy? Or Puppet Lando be sleepy yet?
Well, a long night out with the ladies. Wait, hold on a second. I gotta get the thing going.
You got to do the warm up, Bill.
Yeah.
The warm up is most important.
How you doing?
There you go. Yeah. Yes.
How you doing, Jason?
Oh, there it is. Yeah.
I'm Lando Calrissian. I'm the administrator of this facility. It's good to be here.
Oh, it's good to have you here.
Yeah.
Lando.
Well,
so we have this story from the Hollywood Reporter.
Especially with all the, the social media. I think what the world needs now is a little Billy D.
Yes. Bring love back to Star Wars, Billy D. Please.
Well, Billy D. Williams, a.k.a. me, is returning to a galaxy far, far away. Now, let me tell you a little bit about this story I have here. The actor... You got it. Let me start this over. You go back. Hey. Oh. How you doing? You slimy double crossing. All right. The actor, myself, who famously played galactic gambler Lando Calrissian, will reprise the role for Star Wars Episode 9, the next Star Wars installment from Lucasfilm. Chatter about Williams joining the production, which is set to begin later this summer, increased in recent days when the actor bowed out. That would be me again. When the actor bowed out of an upcoming sci-fi and pop culture convention, citing a conflict with a movie schedule. Sources,
what else could it be?
Well,
yeah, what other movie could possibly be shooting?
Well, you guys fill in the blanks. Sources confirmed to the Hollywood Reporter that Williams will indeed be returning to the Star Wars film franchise for the first time since 1983's Return of the Jedi. All fighters report in. You may remember...
Oh.
Because we did pretty good against that Death Star. The Lando Calrissian character made his suave debut in 1980's The Empire Strikes Back. That was when he was alive and in perfect hibernation. Williams has in recent years returned to the role that fuels his appearances on the convention circuit. Sometimes I voice Calrissian in various cartoon series and in video games. You may remember me from Jedi Outcast, where I had my ship, the Lady Luck.
Yes, that's a great game, actually. actually.
All right, let me hold on.
Yeah.
Are you slimy? Oh. You okay? How you doing? The character is one of the more popular personages in the Star Wars universe, and appeared in a major way in this year's Solo, a Star Wars story. Donald Glover slipped on the cape to play a younger Calrissian, but he wasn't half as sexy.
No,
and let me just point out to you fellas, nobody can reproduce that swagger.
No. Thank God we have you here to
the real deal.
Well, the puppets, but as close as we can get.
Well, it's always nice to be here. You guys are very accommodating hosts. So we'll have to.
It's hard to find an out, isn't it? Yeah. Puppet Lando is.
We'll have to hang.
All right. Well, we're going to put Puppet Lando back into
put it back in the box.
There he goes, back into the box.
Thank you, Puppet Lando.
Thank you.
I'll see you on Cloud City.
Oh, yes, we will.
Yes, thank you.
Yes. And if you visit Cloud City, tell them RFR sent you.
Yeah. Oh, this is big news. So Lando Calrissian, in the form of Billy D. Williams, coming back to Episode 9. I mean, a lot of us expected that he was going to show up in Episode 8, given the fact that, well, he showed up in the middle chapter of the original trilogy. Certainly, it made sense that he might show up. And then there were several opportunities as you're watching The Last Jedi. You're thinking, oh, this is it. This is the Lando moment. Oh, this is when Lando comes back. When they're on Canto Bight. They're in a casino, for God. It's a place tailor-made for Lando Calrissian. Nope. No Lando. And then at the end, when Leia sends the distress signal out to the friendlies in the galaxy, you think, this is the moment. He's going to come in like the cavalry. And no, still no Lando. But you know what? They killed off Han Solo. They killed off Luke Skywalker. Carrie Fisher passed away tragically. They killed off Admiral Akbar. Who's left? Lando.
Well, Nine Numb, of course.
Nine Numb.
Nine Numb. He is lurking around. You see him in these in the sequel films.
So, do you think there's any possibility that Lando will reclaim ownership of the Millennium Falcon since Han Solo is out of the picture now?
Oh,
that's
interesting.
Leia will be out of the picture. Kylo Ren obviously has no interest in owning the Falcon. He would be the next of kin, obviously.
Wait, who?
Ben Solo.
Yeah, I don't know about that. I think Chewie's in line to get a hold
I
of Falcon.
agree with that. That's where I've been standing since the end of The Force Awakens, because I was wondering now who
does that work? But does that work? Is that like the old lady that leaves everything to her dog when she dies?
No, Chewie is much more than a dog. He's
Chewie's intelligent. He's
intelligent,
technologically savvy. He can.
I don't know. I think he's like a Saint Bernard or something.
No, I'm not going to even. No.
Well, Luke is based.
I wouldn't even let you say that about R2-D2. Now, how dare you, Jason? How dare you?
Now, you wouldn't will anything
R2-D2
to R2-D2.
No,
he doesn't have any belongings. No. Chewie, I can get. I think Chewie is the rightful owner of the Falcon.
I agree with that. But if Lando should show back up, maybe he and Nine Numb will take it out for one last spin, and they'll both blow the thing up. You look
that's my Nine Numb.
It looks like a halibut. I think that's what
the line from Robot Chicken was, "You look like a stack of pancakes." The last thing I want to do is a Lando Calrissian voice when we have Puppet Lando just sitting here in the studio with us. So.
Yeah, you don't want to do that.
A halibut. You know what's funny about that guy? That Nine Numb. His voice is like some African dialect. I think it's African.
Yes.
And I couldn't tell you what country or wherever, but I guess when they showed Return of the Jedi in that country, whenever Nine Numb was on, they just were laughing
They loved it
hysterically.
because he was actually just speaking. It'd be like sitting there listening to someone speak English.
Does anybody know what he's saying, though? He is actually using this language. I don't know.
Yeah, I think you're right. We'd have to go back and probably track it down. Ben Burt was sort of the guy that I think supervised a lot of the languages and all of that. I think that might be a Ben Burt question. But I do remember what you're saying, Bill, that was actually, rather than it being some sort of made up language, that was actually just lifted.
Yeah, well, he would combine stuff a lot, but I guess this character, it was just straight. It was whatever language it was just straightly lifted from their dialect. I mean, imagine being a member of this society, seeing this big Hollywood production, and all of a sudden this character pops up, this alien character pops up, and he's speaking your language. I think that's there's something so humorous about that.
Yeah,
but something really endearing too. I would love to know what he's actually saying. I mean, it's probably something.
Now, wait a minute.
Totally...
I just did a quick search here. It looks like it's Kenyan. Apparently, he was originally voiced by Kipsang Rotich, who was a Kenyan student who spoke in his native Kalenjin language.
Oh, I just got this. I'm sorry, I just got this bulletin showing up to sign autographs at Star Wars Celebration Chicago. Is Kip Sang? He is going to be making his first ever.
Really, Kip Sang is going to be at.
He's the one I don't have.
No, but I'm saying, you know what? There are hardcore Star Wars autograph collectors who would not let a Kip Sang slide through the cracks. They would track him down and do everything they could to get his autograph. I think Chris Mocht is an autograph collector who is like that. I'm going to have to check in with Chris to see if he has.
Well, I've seen some posters.
Hold on, Bill. I got something here for you. This is a vintage article. Get this. This is a vintage article from the Christian Science Monitor. The date line is July 28th, 1983. The latest Star Wars movie, Return of the Jedi, opened in Kenya, but fans aren't cheering for Luke Skywalker or Han Solo. Their favorite character is the alien Nine Num, because he speaks their language.
I think that's great, man.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
I mean, I'm sure that the Star Wars films have been dubbed into the Kenyan language by this point. I mean, it's there are prints of Star Wars out there with, I mean, there must be 100 different dubs of all kind of different languages out there. As a matter of fact, when we hosted the behind-the-scenes stage at Star Wars Celebration Anaheim, we were lucky enough to be there for the world premiere. Well, no, it wasn't the world premiere, but it was the convention premiere of the
Navajo
Star Wars. Yeah, the Star Wars original A New Hope dubbed into Navajo. And we were there with the people who actually pushed that forward. It was an amazing event. It was so incredible to be there for that. So, I mean, Navajo, there aren't too many major motion pictures that have been dubbed into Navajo. And if Star Wars has been dubbed into Navajo, there must be a Kenyan version out there somewhere.
Yeah, well, they don't need to translate Nine Num because apparently his line is Aturizi Inyuimui How Inyuda Uka Ha 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 Ha.
What is he?
Wait, oh my God, that's hilarious. So there's like a phonetic thing you've got
there. Is. And,
so
and translated it means, what are you doing over there? All of you please come here.
Oh, that's a riot.
What are you doing over there? All of you, please come here. That's what he's saying to Billy D.
Wouldn't it be funny if he was like, hey, hi, everybody in Kenya. It's me, Nine Num. You know? Like,
well, that's great.
That's one of those things that I feel like I knew at one time and then forgot, and now, I'm remembering all of this. But, So,
oh, my God, that's
Nine
so
Num,
fascinating.
Speaking Kenyan. But anyway, so Nine Num, he does exist in the sequel trilogy era. So maybe he'll finally reunite with Billy D and Lando Calrissian. Now there is a story over here on Forbes.
Oh my God! Before we leave 9, I just found something online, a quote attributed to Star Wars actress Lupita Nyong'o. Okay. Who's
also an African actress, so it may be Kenyan, right? Is she Kenyan?
She is part Mexican and part Kenyan. She's a Kenyan Mexican actress, and she says that she loved Star Wars. Here's the quote. One of the things I remember as a child connecting with Star Wars is one of the characters spoke Kikuyu.
Oh, my God.
Which is a Kenyan language. And I remember feeling like that made Star Wars mine. That is awesome.
That brings it full...
It's full circle.
Yeah, totally.
Mas Kanata.
I had no idea that she commented on that.
I love that. This is a great story. I had no idea either. That's fantastic.
That's really great.
All right. Well, so Forbes is talking about Lando coming back, and this is Danny DiPlacido. He's a contributing writer there, and he says Lando's late return is a wasted opportunity for the Star Wars sequel trilogy. And I know a lot of us were a little bit cynical. I still remain just a tad cynical when I hear about Lando coming back. Yes, I want to see Lando back in a galaxy far, far away. But I'm a little concerned because, he's a legacy character, and legacy characters are not treated all that great in the sequel trilogy. And this is a quote from Danny's story, and he says, and while the sequel trilogy is rightly very much focused on fleshing out the new characters for a new generation of Star Wars fans, passing on the torch doesn't have to mean taking a back seat. Ray and company have encountered the legendary 3 one by one, like celebrities at Comic-Con, briefly starstruck and then distracted by the next plot twist. He says, and poor Lando is entering the story just as the iconic 3 have left the stage through on- and off-screen tragedy. We might well get a half-hearted reunion of sorts through the odd afterlife of the Force, but that isn't quite the same. So the foregone conclusion is that, yes, we should all celebrate that Lando is coming back to Star Wars, but that it's based on recent history. It could very well mean that it's going to be short-lived. Now, not as short-lived as this, guys. I thought this was a little outrageous. This is another piece. This is over at is this Screen Rant? I don't have the writer's name here, but this person is saying that they think that not only will Leia be killed on screen, but she's going to go down with the Millennium Falcon.
Uh-oh.
Can you believe this?
Uh-oh.
Yeah.
With Nine Numb at the wheel.
And perhaps Billy D. So this is on the heels of the Billy D. Lando announcement. And so this writer, I don't have the name. It didn't print out here. But anyway, they say, imagine this. Picture it. Early in the movie, we're told that Leia is in the Falcon. And this could be in the crawl.
Yeah.
Princess General Leia Organa races across space in the Millennium Falcon. Mm-hmm. But maybe she's with Chewbacca or Lando.
No.
But we know Leia's in there, and during that flight, we see other characters looking on as the Falcon is shot down by the First Order.
No.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. Yeah, this person says, letting Leia go with the Millennium Falcon is the best, if not the only way, to write her out of her character. You think they could do that? Could they? I mean, the Millennium Falcon is like another character. Are they gonna roast the Millennium Falcon now?
At the very beginning of the movie?
Well, they got to get rid of Leia.
Yeah, but, I mean, talk about doubling down.
Yeah, I don't think they'll do that. That's too much. That's just way too much.
My feelings about the Millennium Falcon being destroyed, it always takes me back to 1994 when Kevin J. Anderson's novel Jedi Search was released, okay? It was the first novel of the Jedi Academy trilogy. And in that novel, Han and Chewie crash land the Falcon on the planet Kessel. And they show this on the front cover. There's an artist depiction of the Falcon with its front forks kind of jutting upward and the engine and everything buried into the dirt on the planet Kessel. I mean, it was obvious crash landing. And the feeling I got when I saw that in 94, it made me sick. All right. Now, maybe audiences of today can accept that because we've seen the Falcon crash land a few times. But
you've said this about the Enterprise, too.
Yes.
This destroying of iconic ships. Yeah, I don't like it either.
When they blow up the Enterprise in Star Trek movies. I want to puke in my popcorn every time. I can't handle it.
Now I'm going to disagree here because I think when they do it in Search for Spock, I think it's an incredibly impactful. I think that it's done beautifully.
Does that do it, Swank? When my God, Bones, what have I done? Is that the line?
Yeah, my God, Bones, what have I done?
Oh. Takes me right to that moment.
Yeah. The shat.
And I get that sinking feeling in my stomach because they've trashed the Enterprise again. That was the first time they did it, though. But
they did it in the J.J. Abrams. It wasn't J.J.'s film, but in the J.J. verse, they did it. Didn't they do that in the latest one, or what did they do in the second one?
They all blur together. I just remember that. How about that Star Trek where they crash the saucer section of the Next Generation Enterprise, and it just
put Deanna Troi at the helm. I mean, how far down on the totem pole was she? She took the con.
Yeah, she was like the ship.
And now the ship went down.
She was like the ship's shrink. Hey, fly the thing. What? What?
That's like in those airport movies when Karen Black, the stewardess, had to take over. Did you ever watch those?
No, not really. I remember them like on late night TV and not really paying attention.
It was Airport 75. Yeah, the stewardess had to land the plane.
All right. Well, we'll hear all about that on your airport podcast.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, it's really the podcast is devoted to disaster movies. Just
in general.
Yeah, it's coming.
Oh, good. You've workshopped this. I like that.
Yeah, a little bit.
But let's get back into the concept of destroying the Millennium Falcon. I don't think but no, that Star Trek movie. So they crashed the saucer section of the Next Generation Enterprise, and it like skims across the surface for 20 miles, and they're just sitting there going, what? And it's like that Geico commercial they show now during the World Cup games where the soccer player is celebrating his score by he's sliding on his knees, and he never stops sliding. He just keeps going around in the arena, and, somebody hands him a flag, he's waving it, he's still on his knees and sliding. That's what that's what that saucer section crash it felt like to me. Again, sick to my stomach that they're destroying the Enterprise. So if we actually have to witness the destruction of the Millennium Falcon, why? Why bother? I understand that a lot of the original trilogy characters have kind of aged out of their action hero prime, but the Millennium Falcon can go on forever. 3PO, R2, and Chewbacca can go on forever. I think it's important to maintain a constant thread throughout all Star Wars films.
Well, I think that is the difference between that and even what they did in Star Trek. I mean, with the relaunch of the Star Wars franchise with the sequels, they have been very focused on presenting the Falcon as a it usually shows up in the earliest marketing stuff. You see Bob Iger standing in front of it. Remember how Kevin Smith was talking about visiting the set of The Force Awakens. I mean, the reveal of the Falcon in The Force Awakens, I thought was a terrific moment, and they keep referring to it as, well, it's a character of itself, in itself. And of course, they developed that so much further in the Solo movie. So, if they're considering it as a character now, which it is and it isn't to me.
Yeah,
anyway.
but
I mean, it's a ship. It's not. I don't
replace it.
What's that?
They haven't set anything up to replace it. So I don't think this is going to happen.
Right, and that's the difference. That's what I was getting to. That's the difference with Star Trek. I mean, so there have been multiple enterprises. I know they've destroyed. I mean, I guess the one in Star Trek 3 was the original, right? I don't even know. I mean, there's been so many different enterprises, I can't even keep track.
Well, in Star Trek 3, at that point, it's the because they get the new Enterprise in Star Trek: The Motion Picture.
Oh,
they
I thought
up 45 minutes of that film, just giving a tour of the outside of the Enterprise
and listening to the soundtrack. 10-minute. Yeah, just gaze at our wonderful special effects moment there, But I thought that was supposed to be the same ship from the TV show.
Retrofitted.
Yeah, it is. It is. Yeah. It is retrofitted.
Okay.
Yeah.
But it is still the same ship. All right.
It is still the ship. That's the one that goes down in 3, and then they get the. Then they're on the Klingon Bird of Prey in 4, and then they get the new ship in 5.
Excuse me, we're talking about the difference between the 1701 AA.
Oh my God, he's pulling rank on us.
In the 1701A.
Get out of here, you Kirk-loving Spock suckers!
We're talking about Star Wars.
Thank you. Let's reel it back in.
Star Trek.
But I'm still saying that it's that feeling I get when they destroy the ship. Why destroy the ship? The ship can go on forever. Why do you have to destroy the ship?
Well, I don't think that. See that, but that's my point. I don't think they're going to do it because I mean, it's so. They've turned it into this character onto itself, and so to even consider destroying it, let alone with other legacy characters inside it. I mean, what are you going to do? Just fill it up with, put the Cantina band in there, Just load it all up with all your action figures and blow it to smithereens. I don't think they're going to do that.
No, I don't think they're going to do that. That came from, what was that? The site was Dork Side of the Force. And
what Lando's going to be in there? So they got to reintroduce him, and he's like, "Hey, Leia's in there. I got to go," and then they blow it up. I mean, I can't imagine.
No, I mean, but really, what do you think is going to be Lando's contribution to this this trilogy? I mean, when you think about it, we've got. We're still on Rey's journey. This is about Rey. This is about Rey, claiming her place as sort of the next Jedi. We don't know what's going to happen with Mark Hamill. Although, by the way, in all of this conversation about who's going to be in Episode 9 and who's not, we do have the first confirmation of who is not going to be in Episode 9.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
We know this for a fact, and I've got bad news. But it appears that Mark Hamill's beard will not be in Episode 9. I know.
Wait a second.
Look. There's no news whether or not that the beard will be CGI.
Can't do a CGI beard. It has to be authentic.
Yeah. Now, close family and friends of Mark Hamill's beard say that they're okay if the beard is added via CGI. Mm-hmm. They've given up the rights to the likeness of Mark Hamill's beard. They're okay with that. But no statement from Lucasfilm as whether. But people are scratching their heads because Mark Hamill, who's very active on Twitter, as of today, as we're recording this, tweeted a photo of himself and his new toy. He got a Joker cane from the folks at Sideshow Collectibles. Of course, Mark Hamill, in addition to Luke Skywalker, the voice of the Joker, and for me, my Joker of my generation from the Batman animated series. And so he was showing off this cane that he got from Sideshow, and everyone was like, "Oh my gosh, look at this! Look at this!" He has no beard; he's clean shaven. And Mark has been sporting, either a goatee or a beard for several years now. Yeah, and he
talked about when he first had to grow it. I mean, he was like,
it was a struggle.
My contractually obligated beard,
right?
And he's like, I look like an actual homeless person. I mean, he really didn't seem to like it at all.
I don't think he's had any experience with facial hair, like actually cultivating a sort of look, a beard, anything. I looked through older pictures of Mark. I could find nothing.
No movies?
I was suspicious if he could even grow a beard.
He's had a mustache before.
Didn't he have a beard
John
on
Carpenter's Body Bags, I think he had a mustache. I know some film roles he's had mustache.
I thought he had a beard. Now, this was probably a falsie, but I thought he had a beard in that Steven Spielberg series, The Amazing Stories. I thought he had a beard.
I don't remember that. What I do remember, I should take back what I said, because I can think of an example. He did a very low-budget film shot at San Diego Comic-Con called Comic Book the Movie.
Oh, right. Yeah, I saw that.
He had a beard in that?
Yeah, he was playing a character, but it was sort of an ad-lib thing. So it was like Mark Hamill, a reporter out covering Comic-Con. But like I said, it was a character. It wasn't him.
I'm looking at it right now. Absolutely, he has a beard.
Yeah, I remember watching that.
And these goofy glasses.
I found that movie when it first came out. It was very low budget, very limited release. This was before everyone was watching movies on demand, online, what have you. You had to search this stuff out. And so I found this movie. I found it. No, it was on DVD. And I watched it. I was looking at it. I was thinking to myself, wow, Mark with a beard. Very Jedi. Very Jedi. The movie is nothing I could actually recommend. Maybe if I watched it now, it has more of a value. But
it looks awful.
It's ponderous. It's terrible. It has terrible pacing. It has its moments, but for the most part, it's a real dog. But I watched it because I love Mark Hamill, and I wanted to see what he was up to in that movie. Speaking of Mark Hamill, I'm just getting caught up on a recent interview he just did at the 2018 Saturn Award, which happened late in June.
Yeah.
And the Saturn Awards are, they honor the best in science fiction, fantasy, and horror film and television. So big winners this year, Black Panther, Blade Runner 2049, The Shape of Water, and Star Wars The Last Jedi did not go home empty-handed. Mark Hamill took home the Best Actor Award.
Nice.
Really?
It's a whole auditorium screaming for Mark. Also, Star Wars Rebels took home Best Animated Television Series. But Mark Hamill was tracked down, I believe, before the event on the red carpet. He talked to the Associated Press and had a few things to say about the character he won the Best Actor Award for, Luke Skywalker, and the depiction of Luke in The Last Jedi.
My view of the character was that he was the most idealistic character. He was the most optimistic character. And I said, even if I did something ghastly, like picking the wrong young student, that I would redouble my efforts. I wouldn't just go off to an island for 30 years. But that's not my job. I have to do what I can do the best to realize the vision of the writer, in this case, Rian Johnson. So, it was tough on me because I was sort of old school George Lucas, and you have to make way for the new generation. So I had to figure out how can I best make this work. And there's lots of backstory I made up for myself that wouldn't concern the audience in any way. And that's when I made the analogy of being the Beatles generation, where all you need is love. And in effect, we failed, because I think the world is much worse now than it was then.
All right, so the Saturn Awards were given out on June 27th, so this is pretty recent. Mark Hamill is not slowing down or, in any way reversing his stance about the portrayal of Luke Skywalker. He's making it very clear, fellas, that yes, he's an actor, he's a professional, and he was hired to do a job, and he did it to the best of his ability. But as someone who understands this universe and this character probably better than anybody, I would suggest better than Rian Johnson, that he fundamentally disagreed with it. He's not backing down on any of this.
No, none at all.
There's no sign of it. And while he does seem to have a very cordial and appreciative relationship with Rian Johnson, again, because he's a professional, he certainly is leaving the door open for fans that have a pretty, that are less than happy with the treatment of the character.
Yeah, and you know what? He definitely opens a window there and gives you some insight into his own process. How he was able to make sense out of this stuff that he had personal issues with, obviously. And it's interesting the approach. Actually, his take on it, at least what he said. He said there's some stuff. He gave some background stuff that he's the audience is not going to know about or wouldn't be interested in. And I'm assuming doesn't explain all that in that clip, but he does say that he created this idea of the love, the peace love generation not fulfilling the promise of that. If you look at today's society, and it's interesting to hear that, because if you think of the original Star Wars, that was created by George Lucas. And I want to preface this by saying, I'm not saying Mark Hamill is wrong in what he's saying. I think more power to him. I mean, kudos to him that he took something and was able to create meaning out of it in that way, because, I mean, he still had a job to do, just like he said. But it's just, there's an irony there when you think about the impetus for the original trilogy, and what Lucas created was an attempt to make an antidote for the cinema of that time, which had grown very bleak. And
yes, right. Well, he wanted to get back to basics in a lot of ways. I mean, there was this counterculture thing going on. Everything, like you said, was very gray, very dark, very grim. And he wanted to go back and, basically tell a story about the white hats and the black hats.
Yeah. And sci-fi, it wasn't just the counterculture. I mean, sci-fi was that way too. I mean, if you look at the films,
it was very cerebral.
Like Zardoz, or even 2001, or Planet of the Apes, or there's so many. What was the one with Bruce Dern? Silent Running.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. They're all very bleak visions of the future.
Right. Well, I mean, George Lucas himself gave us THX 1138, which is also
exactly, which is an exceptional movie. I'm not placing any judgment on it, because those are all good movies in their own way.
Yeah.
Well, Zardoz, I don't know, but
yet, to your point, I mean, what George was trying to do was show that there's another side of this, and to kind of, and take his target audience, which at the time was young kids, and take them on this journey of discovery, of asking the big questions about life, not necessarily prescribing what God is, but is there a God? Is there some force that binds us together? All of those things. We know what he did. I mean, he stripped all of these. All of the core components to myth-making, storytelling, all of that, he stripped them all down to the bare elements, reconstructed it, and put out this thing that speaks to us and continues to speak to us almost on sort of a primal level, because he was able to just get to the bone of these archetypal characters that a lot of us or most of us respond to and relate to. And again, it was kind of going past this idea of everything being gray and morality being very much, very murky. And he wanted to kind of stick some flags in the sand and say, this is right, this is wrong, this is good, this is evil, and bring it back to basics.
Since we're talking a little bit about George Lucas building the foundation for Star Wars, as he did in the 70s, I'd like to play a clip from Ron Howard. Ron appeared on the BBC way back in May, like the day Solo was released. Just getting around to this audio right now. He talks a little bit about George Lucas laying down some ideas about Star Wars right at Ron Howard's feet as they were creating American Graffiti. So they're out there shooting American Graffiti, and George's like, that's a space film kind of idea. And so he bent Ron's ear a little bit about it when it was in its very early stages.
I did finally say, do you know what you want to do next? It was 3:30 in the morning. We were standing outside in front of the Mel's diner there, and it was exhausted, probably freezing. And he said, "Well, I want to make a science fiction movie." And now at that time, science fiction was not cool at all. He said, "But I want to make a kind of swashbuckling one, like Flash Gordon or something like that, but not Flash Gordon. It's new characters. Instead of those spaceships on wires where you see them bouncing along and you can tell it's fake, I want to use the realism that Stanley Kubrick showed we could do with 2001. But I want things to be fast." That's about all he said.
Fast.
I didn't think it sounded like a very good idea at that point, but fortunately I didn't say that.
Yeah, imagine that so many years later, and here he is, picking up the baton and running with it as he creates this backstory for this iconic character Solo, or helps create this backstory. So there you go, Ron Howard and the origins of Star Wars. We know from our study of all of this that this is something that had been percolating in George's mind for a very long time. I mean, if you read that Secret History of Star Wars or Skywalking or any of the books that document the process that George took, this was not something he just woke up one day and decided to write down. It really took a long, long time for him. I think, the earliest, Jim, do you recall the earliest version of the idea for Star Wars to hit paper? I think they make kind of a big deal of it there in the Secret History of Star Wars. It goes back to, I think, 73.
73, I think, is the first year he actually sketched out the outline, or even just he had a page of character names and whatnot. It's all in those notebooks that he kept in his private office and in San Anselmo. And maybe someday that stuff will actually be published, so you can kind of see it. It's probably a lot of nonsensical stuff to the casual eye.
Now, didn't we talk at one point? I'm having this flashback that we spoke with George's secretary from back then, who actually typed typed one of the treatments for Star Wars, I believe, for him.
Her name was Lucy Autry Wilson. And we talked to Lucy. She had worked with George on a book all about blockbusters and the way it had all been adjusted for inflation, the box office take. And when you break it all down, via the way it gets put through the inflation filter, it displays a whole different picture about what actually is the most profitable movies of all time. So George, he compiled a lot of this information, did a lot of research, and created this book. And we talked to Lucy about it. As a matter of fact, thank you for bringing it up. I'm going to release that as an episode of RFR Rewind, an exclusive Rebel Force radio show, only made available to our Patreon community. And that's a good one to go back and revisit, because she did talk a little bit about George in the early days with us.
Yeah, that's right. And I believe one of the stories she talks about is, if I remember this right, was typing one of the original scripts for Star Wars based on George's, pencil notes,
chicken scratch,
yellow, those yellow legal pads.
Yeah, and isn't it true in that episode 1 documentary that when they show him in his office, you can actually see these fabled binders and whatnot on the shelf next to him,
where he had all the backstory stuff, and absolutely
on a shelf.
Yeah,
got to get our hands on that stuff.
Well, I mean, like I said, a lot of it will probably require actual interpretation by George himself, because this is just a lot of it is just some freehand note taking he was doing.
Yeah.
Perhaps he's the only one who could actually decipher what was written down. I mean, look at stuff.
How long ago was that when you did that interview
with Lucy?
Yeah.
It would have to be around, just a wild guess, I would say 2011.
Oh, that was probably because I think she's mentioned a number of times in Rinsler's books. That would be great to listen to. Oh, you got to dig that up.
She worked directly with him. I think there were certain stipulations with the interview, where we primarily talked about the book.
Yeah.
But at the end, we threw in a few curveballs about her day job and whatnot. Mm-hmm. And this is at a time when she actually was still working with George, and George still owned Lucasfilm and Star Wars.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, she'd been there a very long time. Very nice lady, I remember. And the book, I've got it still here in my library here in the Rebel Force Radio Studios. It's a great book. It's fun because it's one of those books you just open it up to any page, and there's something interesting right there. It's a good bathroom reader.
Yes, absolutely.
It really is.
It's some really incredible research done into all sort of great classic movies, and George Lucas, he definitely did a lot of that research. So it's a fantastic book.
I just find that there's such a great, I don't know, connection, or there's something that really works between George Lucas and Ron Howard. And I remember when I found out that Ron Howard was coming in and he was going to take the helm of Solo, I thought, that's perfect. That's the guy that needs to be doing stuff like this.
Yeah.
I've always had just a great affinity for Willow, and knowing that they were friends and knowing that they worked together, all those years. And I think it was George that gave Ron Howard a lot of advice. I think at that time, Ron was just starting to think about wanting to be a director. And I believe it was George Lucas that pushed him towards the film school there at UCLA, where Ron Howard went. So it just seems like such a natural, great full circle moment for Ron to be landing one of these Star Wars films. Jim, was there anything else on that BBC interview that jumped out at you that?
Let's just run through a couple of highlights I pulled from this interview. The first one is Ron responding to the question about what makes up a Star Wars film. We talk about, that feels like Star Wars. That is Star Wars. It has to be Star Wars. Well, what makes up a Star Wars film? What does he throw into the equation? And what makes Solo different from the previous Star Wars films?
Not every Star Wars film sports the same tone. I mean, this movie, it's not a war movie. And it doesn't have the religion of the Force in it because it precedes Han's exposure to all of that. But it does have this in common with the other movies. It's swashbuckling, and the movement and the action has to have that kind of flair. There's humor wherever possible, but it's not jokey. It's life and death. With Star Wars, J.J. Abrams tipped me off to this, in fact. He said that he believed that every decision they make is a life or death one, and they have to take it that seriously. I agreed with that. And then there are these themes. In this case, it's not political exactly, except there is this oppression. They're living in this lawless corner of the galaxy, and Han Solo is sort of, struggling for his freedom, as a young man would, with that kind of spirit and recklessness. But there are other characters going through a similar kind of a challenge in their lives, and that's relatable on a human level. So with Star Wars, what's interesting is that all of these entertainment values are generally pressed together. It's a little bit like three-dimensional chess when you're directing it. And when I worked for George Lucas doing Willow, he used to talk about simultaneity in storytelling.
What's that word again?
Simultaneity.
That's not a word, even if George Lucas said it.
Well, he invented it and coined it then. But it does sort of describe a certain kind of storytelling where there's just a lot going on all at once. And I think that's why we go see him more than once.
Yeah, that's very true. That's very true. I mean, George, that's a hallmark of George Lucas's style, where you have multiple battles going on at the same time, rapid cuts between, simultaneity. I like
simultaneity.
That.
That's great.
That's a word.
You know what I love about that guy? Listening to Ron Howard talk, I don't know what the quality is. There's like I've said it before, there's like a folksiness about him, but, he's a guy who's been in Hollywood since he was a little kid, It's not like he grew up on a farm or something, but you get that vibe from him somehow. And he doesn't parse a lot of words. He gets right to the point.
Yeah, you're right about that. And he will never outgrow Mayberry. In my mind, so
no, but and I agree with you, Jim, and I mean that as in the highest compliment.
Absolutely, he seems like a very legitimate, real deal sort of guy, and that is a rarity in Hollywood. We have one more cut from Ron Howard. Yeah. This is Ron on the Radio Kermode and Mayo Film Review on the BBC. I recommend everyone visit bbc.co.uk to listen to the whole thing, because this is a long interview, and I'm only giving you a little taste of it here and there. But back to George Lucas. Ron Howard, when he took the reins of Solo, a Star Wars Story, the first day of shooting, he was joined by his pal, the notorious GL. And George showed up on the set, and Ron talks a little bit about that famous set visit.
Didn't George Lucas visit the set, I think?
He did. He came to visit the first day that I was shooting, and it was a two-person scene. It was between Emilia Clarke, Kira, and Alden Ehrenreich, Han Solo. And it was kind of a fun, sparky, sort of romantic, little sexy, funny scene. And in it, she's sort of holding one of Lando Calrissian's cloaks.
He's got a lot of cloaks.
He's got a lot of cloaks, and Han takes it, and the direction was to he hangs it up. He takes it from her and kind of hangs it up on the wall, and George at one point said Han wouldn't hang it up. He wouldn't bother. He'd just throw it over his shoulder, and George acted out the behavior. And for a second, he had that sort of bravado and that sort of swagger, which he doesn't in life. That's not the kind of person he is. I thought it was great, but it echoed something that Harrison Ford had told me. I called Harrison when I came in on this to understand the subtext of the character a little bit better and some of the complexity of the character. And he said, well, I didn't invent the character. George Lucas did. I played him. Now it's Alden's time to find, his own version.
Wow. That's... You look at George Lucas and you look at this kind of little wormy, kind of nerdy hippie. That's what I call George. George is sort of like a nerdy hippie.
He's not so much a hippie, though. He definitely...
But he was. I mean, he was into all of that. I mean, he was definitely part of that sort of counterculture movement. I guess that's not necessarily the same.
Anti-authoritarian is how I would describe him.
Yes.
And that was also very common of what was happening in that time in the late 60s,
for sure.
early 70s.
Vietnam War and Watergate and all of that stuff. Yeah, there's no question about it.
He was like less. He had less of the less outlaw and more intellectual, maybe.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
it was like he was going to work the system. He wasn't going to reject it necessarily.
Right. Well, or use the system against itself,
maybe
in a way.
Mm-hmm.
Outsmart the system. But I just love that anecdote that Ron talks about. George on set, and all of a sudden he sort of becomes Han Solo, and you just realize that, well, yeah, he invented this character. He created this character. Of course he's going to know. We put a lot of weight into Lawrence Kasdan. He writes these characters so well, but he didn't invent those characters. As great as Irvin Kershner was, as great as much life as he helped give those characters, he didn't invent them. George, at the end of the day, is the creator. Mm-hmm. He is the maker when it comes to these characters, and it's a great story from Ron Howard. Even just the simple act of throwing a cloak over his shoulder, I can almost see George doing that and being Han in that moment.
Absolutely.
Very cool.
Hey, speaking of great creators, our friend Kevin Lyle is always whipping up something, isn't he?
Oh, my God. Serial entrepreneur is what I call him.
And a great artist in his own right, and owner of Norse Legion on Facebook. And, of course, Kevin is the guy who created those great Alec Guinness pint glasses. The Obi-Wan pint glasses are fantastic. Check it out, Norse Legion on Facebook. Now, Kevin came on the show, our last show, and he was very generous and offered to give away a pair of exclusive Star Wars pins that he created for the Norse Legion to 10 lucky Rebel Force Radio listeners. 10 listeners would win a pair of these incredibly high-quality pins made of enamel and steel and only available from Norse Legion. So all these people had to do was like and share Norse Legion's Facebook page. That's all Rebel Force Radio listeners had to do, and they had to do it during the week of the 4th of July. And we have an update, and we want to say congratulations to everyone who won. The winners are Ted Dastic, James Owens, Charles Buckner, Chris Joyner, JTB, Scott Glosser, Alex Dowd, Doug Jacobs, Sean Miller, and Edward Kadadrian.
I thought you were going to say Scissorhands.
Edward Kadadrian. Congratulations,
very
guy.
good.
And thank you so much, Kevin Lyle. He's probably already been in touch with you. If not, reach out to him via the Norse Legion page. You guys are winners of those exclusive pair of pins, and you won just simply for being good guys and liking the Norse Legion page and sharing it. So thank you so much for doing what you could for Kevin Lyle, who is really a great guy and someone who lives and breathes Star Wars. And he often does that when he's on stage at conventions like Comic-Con in Connecticut. And he was up on the stage recently in a great panel featuring General Grievous actor and Skywalker sound wizard Matthew Wood and the laugh behind Salacious B. Crumb, Mark Dodson. And so they did a great panel at Comic-Con. If you want more information about Comic-Con and upcoming events from those guys, visit Comic-Con, that's con with 2 N's, comiccon.com. And we asked our loyal RFR Patreon community to supply some questions for Kevin on stage as he hosted this panel with a couple of Star Wars legends. You guys came through, offered up some great material for Kevin to use on stage, and we have a little taste here from the panel. This is Kevin doing his thing on stage with Mark Dodson, the voice of Salacious B. Crumb.
So we're kind of been working with Rebel Force Radio, which is obviously a very, very popular podcast, and we asked them to send out some questions to the audience. But we're also going to have questions from you. But our first question from Rebel Force Radio is from Dan Larson. And Mark, it's for you. He wants to know what does the B stand for in Salacious B. Crumb?
It's my understanding that
there's no way you haven't known this, so you've got to know.
I mean, bread. Is that right, Matt?
I know, a breadcrumb? Oh, that's
bread
funny.
Crumb, Salacious bread crumb.
It's a good pun.
That's what I've been told. That's what I've been told.
Let's go with that.
Salacious bread crumb.
Bread crumb.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. That's a pretty good one.
Yeah. It was a long time before. I didn't even know there was a B. I don't even know when they added the B.
It was always there.
No,
and
because
it's actually a B without a dot. It's just B.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well, that I didn't.
It was there. I can't say it was there in '83, but it was certainly there by '85, '86.
Okay, because when we screened the movie, and then he said, "Do you know who you were?" And I said, "Yeah, that little guy with Jabba." And he said, "Yeah, his name's Salacious Crumb." That was the first time I ever heard his name. And he said, "Do you want to meet the guys that made him? They're here." And I was like, "Yeah." And it was Tony McVeigh.
Right,
had sculpted him. And Chris Wallace was with him. And but I never heard B until, it was a long time before I started hearing Salacious B. Crumb. And then I asked, actually, who told me B stands for that is Tim Rose.
Okay.
The puppeteer behind Salacious.
Yeah.
Okay. That's pretty.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Tim Rose is the puppeteer for Salacious Crumb and a whole bunch of. Well, he's Admiral Akbar too.
Yeah.
In the suit, and Cy Snoodles, and Tim's done a bunch of great stuff.
Yeah.
Hey. All right.
Yeah, Tim Rose did work with the Muppets too, but always good to hear from Salacious B. Crumb, which I believe, Jason, you may remember this. I used to go out and follow Billy D around on the convention circuit, and I would record his panels. And remember, he kind of had a way of referring to Salacious B. Crumb. Let's ask Puppet Lando if do you remember what you used to refer to Salacious B. Crumb as? It was Jabba's what? What?
Oh, yeah, well, Salacious, he was like an appendage. He was like Jabba's appendage.
What?
Yeah, Billy D. He said that. He would refer to Salacious Crumb as...
That's what I thought it was.
What is the thing he says about...
What is it? Some creatures inhabit our dreams and nightmares. Some come directly to us from the movies, like this character, Salacious Crumb. He plays Peter Lorre to Jabba the Hutt's Sidney Greenstreet. And he sits at his blubber ship's right hand and gives people like Carrie Fisher's Princess Leia a pretty bad time.
But notice no B in that.
But there is a B in Salacious Crumb's name. I mean, that has been...
Well, we know that. But that's... I think I'm with Kevin. I think that showed up later. I mean, Kevin's like, 85, 86. I mean, I'm not going to argue with Kevin. I mean, he knows his stuff.
Yeah.
So if he says it's 85, 86, I'm going with it.
Right.
But yeah, there was definitely something that showed up a little bit later, I feel like. Makes him more respectable. You throw that middle initial in there.
Somehow it does, doesn't it?
Yeah.
All right, so as I mentioned, not only was Mark Dodson, Salacious B. Crumb, the voice of, or I should say the laugh of, he was there, but Matthew Wood, who is obviously, like I said, a Skywalker Sound legend, a guy who's been working on Star Wars for, 20-something years. I don't know. Me and Sheldon.
I think he started when he was like 16 years old.
Me and Sheldon were out there summer of 2015, and we hung out with Matt all day. And he was celebrating his 20th anniversary at Lucasfilm that day, and he chose to spend it with me and Sheldon. And Matt was he was being very reflective that whole day too, and it was kind of an honor to be with him as he celebrated that anniversary. So here's Matthew Wood on stage at Comic-Con in Connecticut, and a little bit of RFR influence really comes into play in this next clip.
We have another online question from Jimmy Mack, who's Jim McInerney, who's a 9-year-old from Chicago, and he'd like to know if you can ask, as General Grievous asks Salacious Crumb, or tell Salacious Crumb a joke, and maybe Salacious will laugh if he finds it funny. So we thought we'd do a little bit of acting here.
Okay, a joke.
Why don't cannibals eat clowns? Because they taste funny.
There we go. That was for you, little Mac kid. I hope that's recorded forever.
I love that.
And we actually have a second one. Are you going to do is maybe a battle droid?
A battle droid joke, okay. A joke, okay. And then how are you going to answer? As what?
As a gremlin?
As a gremlin?
You want me to do as a gremlin?
We can do gremlins, right? Yeah.
Okay.
What did one snowman say to the other snowman?
Gotcha.
Smells like carrots.
Now, did you get that?
That's all the acting that we'll be doing for today.
Snowman's nose is a carrot. You got
it smells the.
That was great.
Carrots.
I love that. That was a great show.
Yum, carrots.
That was pretty fun. That little Jimmy McInerney, whatever his name was, he's pretty.
Yeah, he's a pretty funny guy. That little Jimmy Mac.
Pretty bright guy. You know what I'm talking about, don't you?
I do.
Yeah.
So there you have it. 9-year-old Jimmy McInerney from Chicago sending in his questions to the Lucasfilm big players. And thank you, Kevin Lyle, for making all of this 9-year-old's dreams come true by making sure that we had a recorded document of General Grievous telling jokes with Salacious Crumb laughing. Nothing is more authentic and important to the growth of Star Wars than that moment captured right there. That's an RFR exclusive, I'm proud to say, too.